got a full house. We want a live audience, right? Awoke, paying attention, listening, and participating when you can. My name is Jackie Algie, and I am Vice President and Director of External Relations for SEIU Healthcare Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, and Missouri. But I'm here in the capacity tonight as the board president of Women's March Chicago, who is one of the sponsoring organizations of this forum. It gives me great honor to be able to have some conversation with Alderman Moore in this capacity. And so we'll start first by me putting my glasses on so I can see what I'm reading. How are you this evening, Alderman?
I'm doing well, thank you so much.
That's good. That's good. Good to hear that. That's good to hear. Thank you for joining us today. The first question I want to ask you is, why are you the best candidate for the Secretary of State for Illinois?
First and foremost, I'm the only candidate in this race that back in 1998 circulated and worked hard for Secretary of State Jesse White to get elected. The reason why I did that, because back then, before he came in, this office was mired in corruption and scandal. And I wanted to make sure that we had someone in there, we had a servant's heart. And I, even though the party back then supported Tim McCarthy, I stood out and I helped Secretary White. It wasn't a wrong decision. And I met him when I was at a very young age as a young man and saw how he cared about the youth. And that's why I'm the best person for the seat, because I have that servant's heart, just like Secretary White, and I have the heart for our young people, just like Secretary White, and I've proven that in every area of my life, including as an alderman of the 17th Ward.
Thank you. So each of the organizations, and I'll list those for you: Advancing Justice, Vote, Assyrian, Common Cause, Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition, Asian American Midwest, Progressives, Young Dems of Illinois, and finally, Women's March Chicago. We are the partnering organizations for this forum, and we'd like to know how you will ensure Secretary of State services and your team will represent and serve our communities, hire diverse staff, and utilize our expertise and counsel as diverse leaders and residents. And you can be brief in your remarks, but make sure that you give the remarks that you feel are necessary to complete an answer.
Absolutely. One of the things I always talk about in this race is that it's easy to say when you're running what you're going to do. Everybody in this race has a history of what they've already done, and that's what you have to look at. What I've already done as alderman in the 17th Ward, I have a diverse population from Eaglewood all the way to Chicago Lawn, of all those ethnic groups that you talked about. And one of the things that I've done as an alderman is to make sure that all of them have a voice and a seat at the table, as well as our young people, in advising me and giving me guidance and making sure that their voices and their needs are heard. I tell everybody this, and I mean it, even within my office, I have a 20% Latino population. I didn't learn about Day of the Dead until I became alderman. There are some things you're just not going to know. What you don't know that you don't know, you just don't know. So you have to put people around you who are different backgrounds to get their input and their ideas and make sure that those input and ideas are shared and implemented. I do that now as alderman of the 17th Ward, and I continue to do that as Secretary of State.
Thank you. What do you see as the largest obstacle to your winning this race? That's the first part of the question. And then the second part is, how will you overcome that obstacle?
The largest obstacle that I see in this race, and I don't see it as an obstacle, but I see it as an opportunity. And it's the same thing what people said was an obstacle when I ran for alderman. You don't have all of these people behind you, and you don't have all of this money. You will never win for alderman. It's about touching the people. And I had I see an opportunity when I get to come out, as I've traveled all across the state, going into towns that no one wants to go in, and touch the people. Because one thing I know about people are smart enough to make their own minds up. And when we do that, we win. And so I don't see it much as a challenge as I see it much as an opportunity that I definitely will overcome, because I've done it when I was alderman, and I'll do it as candidate for Secretary of State.
Thank you. What support do you have at this time in the race to move you towards a win?
The support that I have is what I've always had, the people. At the end of the day, the people get to make the decision. Yeah, it's nice to have on paper that, you know, Clerk Brown, who's been who served as a great clerk, is supporting you. Nice to know that a great representative like Mary Flower was there to support you and others. But when you have the people who know your background, you have the people who look at your record and they're saying, we're with you, Alderman Moore, we're standing with you, then that's all I need. Yeah. And so like I said, this is a different channel, but the same situation when I ran for alderman. It's nothing new, and when you have the people that you can reach, and those are the ones that are going to be voting, and those are the ones that have seen the service that I've done over the years, and those are the ones that's going to get us in.
You're all making the rest of them sit outside the room, and he's just like sitting on this Zoom.
We've got voices. Are we good? Okay. We apologize for that. Please continue.
No, I was done at
That's
that point. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, let's see. What do you want the audience here today to know that you haven't said already, or a question that I might not have asked that you'd like to give, you know, more background and information about you personally?
Absolutely. What I want the audience to know is that I started serving at a young age. I started serving, my first introduction to service was in church as a junior deacon at the age of 11. At the age of 8. At the age of 11, I was introduced to public service. And that's when I got introduced to going around doing campaign activities. And what I've learned doing all of that, from being a junior block club president, to serving as a block club president, to serving as a CAPS coordinator, coming out of the projects of Chicago and Inglewood, getting my degree in accounting and operations management, spending 10 years in the manufacturing sector before coming over into the public sector, is that it's all about people. I was an RA in college, and being an RA in college, I was responsible for 40 guys with different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different political views. And what I've learned to do, and that's what got me into alderman, and that's what get me to Secretary of State, is making sure that people have an opportunity to come out, like you all are doing at this forum. And don't be afraid to invite us out even to smaller sessions or bigger sessions. And that's what I encourage this audience to do, so you can get those questions answered, and so that you can keep asking people, so you're not just always listening to quick sound bites. And I encourage people to do that.
Okay, do we have a timekeeper? Because I'd like for him to be able to say.
We have 6 minutes.
We have 6 minutes?
6 more minutes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about Alderman Moore. Now I'll tell you, when I came in tonight, I had this card was in my seat. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, there's quite a lot on this card. So can you talk a little bit more about what you have proposed to do according to what your card says?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna start with the one that's nearest, dearest to my heart. And that is making sure our young people have a voice and a seat at the table. And I'm the first one in this race that talked about making sure that that happens. That there are 122 driving facilities throughout this state. And I want to create 122 youth engagement offices for our youth, using private-public partnership. That way, we can make sure our young people have a voice and a seat at the table. This Secretary of State seat is the only seat in the whole entire state that touches our youth and our children from the time we teach bike safety, to driver's education, to voters registration. And that's key to me. One of the things I'm offering here is that, as even in the Democratic Party, we like to get our youth engaged, is an opt-out option, not an opt-in option, but an opt-out option for voter registration. Our children come in at 16, they get a driver's license. They cannot register to vote. But one of the things I propose, when they turn 18, they're going to get a birthday card from the Secretary of State saying, happy birthday, here's your gift, you are automatically registered to vote. And then we're going to give them an opt-out option, either an opt-out, because some people may not want to be a registered voter, or give them that option to select their party choice, whether Democrat, Republican, or Independent. And so that's one of the things that I propose. The other I talk about is making sure that our seniors have a discount. People always talk to me that's a third rail, and they say, well, you don't want to do that because where you're going to find to replace that revenue. Like I told you, I have a degree in accounting and operations management. I spent 10 years in the private sector. One of the things that I had to do in the private sector was find opportunity, cost savings, and generate new revenues. One of the things you see on that card that we talk about are digital license plates as an option. Right now, California, Arizona, and Michigan are doing digital license plates, and that they got a cost savings of over $250 over a 5-year period. What that does is about safety with carjackings that's going on right now. People get notified and they can say that your car has been stolen. It also assures us to get revenue in from uninsured motorists. Right now, there are a lot of uninsured motorists on the street that we're paying for, and that revenue that we're not getting in at the state level. It can say that their car is uninsured, not to get people arrested, but to get them in compliance. And so those are the type of things that I'm talking about, real solutions, so that we can make sure that we have those items at the Secretary of State's office. Also, a lot of people don't know that the Secretary of State is the state librarian. We have to bring and find and use technology to make sure that we're bringing our young people back into the library, but not only young people, but people throughout this whole entire state, and utilizing our libraries using VR technology and other technological advances to make sure that they're using those libraries. And so those are some of the ideas that I propose, and those are the things that I know that are very doable.
2 minutes.
So we got 2 minutes, and in 2 minutes, just give me a summary, if you would. We know that you've been in public service for a very long time, you know, you work in a community that is ravaged with gun violence sometimes, and just, you know, violence in the community at large. How do you propose to address that through your office and the abilities of the Secretary of State to be a part of helping to address those problems and hopefully fix them so that people of all ages feel safer in their communities as members of the state or residents of the state?
Absolutely, and part of those challenges, as we have done throughout this whole entire city, one thing I can say for the 17th Ward, shootings in our ward have gone down consecutively with the exception of the year 2019. And that's because of my engagement with all of those organizations and different people that you talk about. From the Secretary of State office standpoint is what I talked about, that youth engagement piece. That's a critical piece. And also making sure that our young men who come out of prison, we know who we have in our prisons. And so they get a little card right now in the prisons, their own ID. They should be able to bring that ID to the Secretary of State's office so that we can automatically give them a state ID so they can get back to work and not put obstacles in their way. When they cannot get their ID and they can't get their job, what are they doing? They're going back to what they know they have to do. So we cannot put those obstacles in their way. I want to make sure that when they're coming out of prison and they got their ID card from out of prison, we convert that ID card into a state ID so that they can get them a job and we can get those residents employed.
Well, we've got our stop sign now, and We just want to thank you again, Alderman Moore, for coming and participating in this forum. And hopefully there's, people have listened and heard what you've had to say. And, we have a couple of other candidates who's coming up behind you. But we thank you again for joining us.
No, I just want to say, I want to first of all thank all the organizations that helped put this on. And then I want to thank each and every one of you who came out and took out the time of your day to come out and listen, because that's how you're going to find out. And I always tell people this, at the end of the day, you want to know who's going to return your phone call when they get in office. And I have a history of doing that now as as Alderman, and I will continue to do that as Secretary of State. Thank you.